Hey, welcome back to another episode of Casa De Confidence. I am speaking to Lindsay White today, and Lindsay and I are going to unpack a lot about leadership, culture. And again, it's not just about being a leader, but it's about being someone who is inspiring and understands that there's got to be a strategy for how we show up in the world, how we are impacting the lives of others. Lindsay is doing some really great work. And I am really thrilled that she is here because she's coached and consulted with first time supervisors and senior executives. So it's very important to have someone that has seen the gamut when it comes to leadership. And again, if you're ready to be confident and inspiring, Lindsay is your gal. So welcome to the show, Lindsay.
Thank you. It's an absolute pleasure to be here.
Well, again, I love people who understand the importance of leadership because this has been something that throughout my life, from a very young age, I was always told I was a leader, not a follower. So I know that leadership has been something that I always step up to the plate, raise my hand, and I'm not always confident about it. But again, I come from a family of leaders, and that was very natural to me. Now, how did you come about to becoming a leadership coach and doing the work that you do?
Yeah. So, much like you, Julie, I've always been a leader. I was always captain of the team. I was, vice president of the Students' Council. Some of us do come to that in a very, sort of natural way throughout our childhood and then into adulthood. Certainly when I entered the corporate world, that's when I really became exposed to sort of leadership as a skill set and as a discipline. And particularly, of course, working in human resources for almost 20 years now.
Wow.
That's actually been a big focus of the work that I do is leadership development. So how do
Mm.
we, identify leaders? How do we help them grow in their leadership capability? What are the things we need to do to support that?
Mhm.
And then, of course, working a lot with C-suite level leaders. How do we help them then create that cycle so that
Mhm.
they're fostering the growth of other leaders in those organizations? And now I do that work with small business owners. So
Love it.
how do we, as an expert in our field, we
Mhm.
start our own business, we grow a team. How do we lead that team to
Mhm.
be and be really impactful, lead their growth and enable them to help us continue to scale and grow our business successfully?
I love that you're talking about how does this relate to small business owners
Yeah.
because most people tend to think of leadership as the leadership in these big Fortune 500 companies and the people that are very visible. Yet there's a lot of ways in which small business owners, entrepreneurs really are leaders, specifically because they step away from maybe a corporate career and decide, hey, I'm going to go in this direction. And they're going and forging the way for themselves. And then they start these organizations for themselves in which they're bringing people on board. Now, one of the things that I noticed before we unpack more of the entrepreneurship conversation is that one of the things that becomes very disheartening in an organization is when you have someone in a senior position and yet they're not what someone that works with them would consider a great leader. What
Yeah.
are some of the characteristics of what you define a great leader?
Yeah. And unfortunately, that happens more often than I think any of us would like,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So when it comes to leadership, what I think makes a great leader, not a perfect one, a great leader
Yeah.
is, these are like a recipe. So use them in varying measures. I think things like vulnerability, the ability to actually share openly and be courageous in that sharing in a way that creates connection. I think authenticity. being true to who you are and
Yeah.
leveraging that in terms of how you connect and ultimately lead people.
Hmm.
I certainly think, things like the ability to listen effectively are vastly underused and undervalued in terms of leadership. Using your ears and your mouth in the proportion they exist on your face, and not just listening to
So good.
respond, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Listening to actually connect and understand.
Hmm. Yeah.
I think the F word, feelings,
Hmm.
it's just it's a four-letter word in the corporate world, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Being able to leverage your own feelings and connect with others, that's really emotional intelligence,
Yeah.
which is absolutely key to being a great leader. I
Hmm.
think being humble is a
Yeah.
really important leadership attribute, recognizing that you don't have all the answers and you are not the smartest person in the room,
Hmm.
and actually creating space for others to share their brilliance.
Yeah.
I think those are really important leadership attributes. And of course, there's other skills,
Hmm.
the ability to think strategically, the
Yeah.
ability to bring together teams that have different perspectives and know how to blend people together so that they create great outcomes. Those are skills I think that are actually even easier to learn
Mm.
than those
Yeah.
intangible competencies.
Yeah.
But to me, those are some of the most important leadership attributes.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you talked a little bit about that because I think that, even though I would always define myself as a leader for many years in my careers, I continued to kind of get my footing. I look back and I think I was a terrible leader, specifically because I was the type of person who success was important and I didn't want people to see the cracks in the armor.
Yeah. Yep.
And I did not see success as I mean, obviously we talk about it being a learning opportunity, but I would think about it, but I wouldn't really apply it to my life. And therefore I was not making the right decisions as someone who was leading a team
Yeah.
because I wanted the success, I wanted the imperfection. And when I needed help, I never or right away I didn't go and look for it. And it
Yeah.
wasn't until I had some big failures, and I'm so glad I did, right? Because
Yeah.
then it helped me recalibrate and become better at what I was doing. But the vulnerability was also a piece that was missing for me.
Sure. Yeah. And I think, you know, in our corporate world, we often confuse leadership with just being the loudest and
Hmm.
talking the most.
Yeah.
And those two things are not the same. Leaders
Hmm.
come in a variety of packages.
Mm.
One of the most important things I think is that as a leader, your first job is to create other leaders,
Yeah.
support and encourage others in their leadership.
Hmm.
And that often means creating space for them. It
Hmm.
means that you have to move from the front of the room to the back of the room.
Yeah.
But that takes incredible courage.
Hmm.
It
Yeah.
takes courage. I mean, asking for help is an act of courage, doesn't matter who you are.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
But
100%.
especially, again, when you think to be at the front of the room, talking the most, knowing all the things, doing all the things, bossing everybody around, to think that you don't know all the things or don't
Hmm.
have all the answers,
Yeah,
um,
absolutely.
that is really challenging. That's our own mindset that
Hmm.
really becomes a problem, our own inner critic that gets in our way.
Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think that this is so much of that what you said earlier that it takes a lot of emotional intelligence. And
it does.
again, these are skills that are acquired. They're not skills that you can learn from a textbook. You actually learn from
Yeah,
experience.
yeah,
And a lot of times we're not open to that because we've never really have seen that molded or shown to us by somebody else. And it's something that it's crucial. Who would you say is someone that you admire when it comes to leadership and why?
yeah. I think there's a couple people, but no, always number one on my list is Brene Brown, Dr. Brown.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Um,
Yeah.
I deeply admire the work that she's done because she has, in a very clinical way,
Hmm.
helped us define what vulnerability and courage
Yes.
are,
Yeah. Love that.
right? Like uses data, uses science,
Hmm.
and theory. And so, and from there applies that to how those things are incredibly valuable in the way we can lead with
Yeah.
courage and conviction,
Hmm.
right? And so I think instead of just being the woo-woo fluffy
Right.
leadership stuff, right? And I've worked in corporate, so I've certainly had executives look
Yeah.
down their nose at me and like, oh, great, more leadership development. It's just going to be all fluffy
Yeah.
stuff. What
Hmm.
she's done is actually shown the research and the science behind it. There is to show that being able to connect with people in a different way
Hmm.
actually creates different outcomes on teams and in organizations. And so
Yeah.
to me, her work has been pivotal. Of course, I also love Simon Sinek,
Hmm.
Start with Why, really
Yeah.
getting underneath the hood and understanding what is not just what's our purpose, but
Hmm.
what's my purpose? What am
Yeah.
I on this planet to do? And
Mm.
how does that help me be a more profound leader? Because then I can help others connect to what their purpose is.
Hmm.
And if we all have a purpose that's pretty aligned, that's where magic happens.
Hmm.
So I think, those are two people that and I have some others,
Yeah.
but this would be at the top of my list.
Yeah, those are the top of my list too. I actually, especially with Simon, I have a video on YouTube that every once in a while, I listen to YouTube or I turn it on first thing in the morning as I'm getting ready, and it's just always a motivational type of thing
Yeah,
going on. And there's a video of him, and it's on repeat, and I watch it every so often when
I
I
love
need that
that.
little umph in. He unpacks it so beautifully. And
Yeah.
really, I think that that's one of the things that sometimes we overcomplicate leadership. We
Yeah.
really overcomplicate it.
Yeah.
In it goes back to the individuals, right, who
Yeah.
may have gotten into a place in which they are leading others, but they still come in with some of the things, their own anxiousness, their own
Yeah.
self judgment, and they think that the best way to lead is by controlling others. And that's definitely not a great way to go.
No, absolutely not. I think the truth is leadership is just one big gigantic feedback loop, right?
Mm,
Like
yeah.
in order, and maybe what I would add is that in order to be a great leader, one of the things that you have to embrace is just constant ongoing learning
Hmm.
and feedback opportunities,
Yeah.
right? You are always invested in growth
Hmm.
because in order to be a great leader, you have to keep evolving, you have to
Hmm.
keep iterating. And I think what Dr. Brown and what Simon Sinek do is they actually, they're first of all beautiful storytellers, and so they create an approachability.
Yeah.
Anyone can embrace their theory on leadership, and the
Hmm.
truth is, I think we all lead.
Yeah. Agreed.
We don't just lead in the office, we lead in our homes.
Hmm.
If we're parents or if we're an auntie or an uncle, if we lead in our communities, if we're a coach, we lead at the grocery store when we let somebody in line that only has two items. Like we lead all the time every day. And in fact, if we all thought about ourselves that way, I think the
Hmm.
world would in fact be a very different place.
Oh, absolutely.
Those
Absolutely.
those two people make leadership very approachable for all of us.
Hmm. And I
Yeah.
think that, the one of the things that I love about them is that um, they not only talk about the soft skills and give us a good glimpse on what leadership can look like through action, but it goes back to the daily actions that we also have and the habits, right? And as a tiny habits coach, I think that habits are incredibly important when it comes to leadership, and
Yeah.
that without them, then we were kind of just surviving without necessarily being able to thrive. What would you say are some of the habits maybe that you yourself have as a leader and that have helped you throughout your careers and all the endeavors that you have?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And I just did a workshop for a wonderful group yesterday, and we were talking about leadership happens in the small moments, right? The big things, like our big workshop we
Mhm.
did for 35 people yesterday, is great. But leadership happens in the little interactions. And so, absolutely, like the habits that you develop. So,
Mhm.
I think one of the most important habits for me is just constantly asking for feedback.
Mhm.
What
Yeah.
what did you see go well? Where
Mhm.
was something tricky or difficult? And what could I do differently or do next time that would make this better or make this different or
Mm.
make this even more exciting? So that's an important habit. And the truth is it's a muscle. That
Yeah.
feedback muscle constantly has to be stretched and grown.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um,
Agreed.
I would say that's number one. I think, again, number two would be it related to the growth factor, which is
Mhm.
I'm always listening, reading, interacting with people and not just thought leaders, but
Mhm.
other people that I respect, that I see have become great leaders. And I think that's really important that we just continue to learn and grow and talk through what does leadership look like? How is it evolving? Because leadership, even since COVID, leadership looks
Oh,
different,
absolutely.
right? Now, as we really embrace and navigate remote work,
Mhm.
that's another level and adaptation to our
Yes.
leadership. We have to constantly be
Mhm.
learning and be curious and asking questions.
Mhm.
I think those are little habits, to your point, that we can just develop in ourselves. And then I think also the deep self-reflection,
Mhm.
right? What does leadership mean for me? How do I want to show up? What are the
Yeah.
things that I want to focus on? And just actually redefining that for ourselves on a fairly regular basis,
Mhm.
so that we can continue to develop and change in a way that feels really meaningful for us and is impactful for the people that we lead.
Yeah, and I think that ultimately we are leading people, but it starts with the work that we're doing in ourselves and really
Yeah.
tracking where we are. Um, what are ways in which people really falter when it comes to really noticing if they're improving, becoming better leaders, or really taking a chance to just be open to seeing, the progress that they're making or changes or shifts that they need to make to become better leaders?
Yeah. Number one on my list is that they don't give themselves enough credit,
Mm,
right?
yeah,
Is that we actually don't pause to celebrate when the things are going right, the
yeah,
small wins.
yeah.
And so, even as leaders, we need to have the opportunity
Mhm,
to, just do that lovely reflection
mhm,
and embrace the fact that we learned something, that we changed something, or we got
mhm.
something new to go forward with.
Yeah,
And we sell ourselves short. I think that that's that inner
mhm,
critic again that does
yeah,
not allow us the opportunity to pause,
mhm,
does not, it's you're not working hard enough, you're not doing enough, get back to work.
mhm,
No, we deserve that opportunity to say, yeah, you know what? Actually, that felt really good. That went really well.
mhm. Yeah,
And then, I think one of the other things that we don't do enough of is solicit feedback,
yeah.
and creating the environment, building those trusted connections. We need the data. It's
Mhm.
that simple.
Yeah, absolutely.
We
Data
need,
is what drives it.
right. And yet, again, our inner critic prevents us from
Yeah.
seeking that really direct, meaningful feedback.
Mhm,
Not, oh, yeah, you did great. That has zero value. No, I want to hear not just what went well, but what was tricky.
yeah.
What did I do as a leader that really didn't serve you, that didn't
Mhm,
help, that actually maybe got in your way? And
mhm.
then what could I focus on for next time?
Yeah.
If I'm not asking for that, I'm missing an important several different data points that are important.
One of the things that I typically will end my coaching sessions with is asking my clients what could have been better in this session. How
Mhm.
could I have supported you better? And I think that, at times, um, it takes, I don't want to hear the answer necessarily if I didn't, live up to the expectation during a session. But at the same time, if I am going to be continuing to help someone and commit to their growth and live
Mhm.
up to their expectations, I have to know if I'm not meeting their expectations. And
Yeah.
I can't help but to have that little judge or inner critic saying, "Oh, Julie, you're terrible," or "You don't
Yeah.
want to hear this. Don't ask. Don't ask. It
Yeah.
won't. Well, it's fine." But it's very important. Now, that's one of the ways is myself, a coach, an entrepreneur, kind of measures that. But for someone, for instance, that is a solopreneur, maybe has one or two people, not someone that they're working for yet, how do they ask for feedback? Who can give them feedback as to what
Oh,
they are doing right and wrong or what needs improvement in their leadership journey?
yeah. Well, number one is your clients,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Soliciting and not just feedback about your product or your service,
Hmm.
but feedback about the interactions. Now,
Mm.
you have to have a great relationship and there's levels of trust here for
Hmm.
sure.
Yeah.
But generally, we all have a client or two that
Hmm.
we can be, really connected with and asking for that information.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yes, I think whether they're employees or contractors, you need to be asking those people.
Hmm.
You can leverage your network. We all have those trusted advisors that we go to. We can ask them for that feedback.
Hmm.
Or, are you in a mastermind or some kind of community where, again, you have a trusted relationship with someone and say, I really want to make sure that I got my eye on this. I'm looking for some
Hmm.
quality feedback about how I am showing up in this situation that you see me in.
Yeah.
What am I doing well? What is maybe challenging and what could I change?
Mm. Yeah. I love that. I love that. Um, One of the things that many people, again, as we are leading ourselves and others, and we are navigating, right, like you said, this post-COVID world in
Yeah.
which sort of the rules of the game have changed. A lot of times, I feel people really spending time in what my friend and coach Corinne calls the dirty diaper, and I think as dirty emotions, things that are not serving you, but they're these negative emotions that, in my book, are the ones that are kind of the little warning signs, right?
Yeah.
If yet not everyone sees it that way, but they end up just living in that shoulda, woulda, coulda, or
Yeah.
really chastising themselves. How does someone move from a negative emotion to kind of using that as, like we said, right? It's information,
Yeah.
and then moving through that.
Yeah. So it's interesting you ask because I think this is fundamental for all of us. We all
Mhm.
have that. I'm going to label it the saboteur, the inner critic, and
Mhm.
that's
Yeah.
the coachy language that I
Mhm.
use.
Yep.
We all have the saboteur. It's deeply rooted in our own, operating system in our brain.
Mhm.
And so, first acknowledging that it's the human condition. I mean, that's
Mhm.
important. Everyone's voice says something different, but we all have the voice.
Yeah, absolutely.
And being very judgmental and harsh on ourselves is something that we all struggle with. I
Mhm.
think the very first step is the acknowledgement. The second step is understanding. Are there, being almost an anthropologist of yourself, are there moments
Yeah.
where you get hijacked? Are
Mhm.
there specific circumstances or
Yeah.
spaces where that voice is really loud?
Mm.
Can you actually pause and listen to what is that conversation? What
Right.
is being said? Can you identify and even to some degree personalize
Yes.
that chat?
Mhm.
So, in the coach training that I did several years ago, I had a leader, and this always makes me laugh when I think about it. She was from the deep south. Her saboteur, his name was Bubba.
Oh,
Bubba drove a pickup truck with a gun rack and the whole, like, he was
that's
like
funny.
a
Yeah.
full-time Southern dude, right?
Mhm.
And when Bubba started to chirp for her, she would get up and put him in the icebox, and she would walk over the fridge and she would say, Bubba, that's enough. You get in that icebox. And she would slam the door. So she
Yeah.
really gave her saboteur a persona.
Mm-hmm.
And in that
Yeah.
way, you can create some distance and some perspective.
Yeah, I
At
love it.
that point, you can then start to challenge that internal belief that Bubba always tells the truth, because in
Yeah.
fact, the saboteur is constantly lying to us.
Mm,
Once we can do that, we can shift far more easily from that negative into a space of empathy, and then we can start to problem solve, we can start to innovate, and we can move forward into really focused action.
mhm. Yeah, I love that example, and it,
Right.
I am a positive intelligence
Yeah.
coach as well, and I think that I had a hard time at first naming that judge, um,
Yeah.
and then the more that I spend time listening to my self judgment in these crucial times, I realized that that voice. Believe it or not, this kind of sounds sad, but if it's my kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
And I realized that there's a lot of these beliefs that I have, and there's other voices too in there too of my childhood, but
Oh, yes.
definitely that's so I named my voice Norma.
Love it. I love
Uh,
it.
but it definitely was helpful to kind of create, like you
Yeah.
said, that separation.
Yeah.
And it's been incredibly helpful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? The ability to externalize that voice
Hmm.
gives you an entirely different perspective on it. Because what happens, of course, is it becomes such an echo chamber.
Hmm. Yeah.
I talk to my clients about the saboteur spiral, because that's what it does. It just
Yeah.
sends us right,
Yeah.
circling the toilet, right? And
Yeah.
when we can externalize that voice, man, we can absolutely start to analyze it in a completely different, more anthropological way.
Yeah.
And everybody's voice is, of course, going to be different, right? I mean,
Mm.
Shazad in the positive intelligence work, he sort of delineates into the 10
Hmm.
saboteur conversations, but each of our clients, Julie, experiences the controller in a slightly
Yeah.
different way. And often
Absolutely.
it can be someone from our youth that was
Hmm.
impactful, maybe
Yeah.
in a relatively innocuous way, but the echo chamber of our brain has
Mhm.
built Norma or Bubba into
Yes.
something that actually holds us back
Hmm.
from really doing the work we're
Yeah.
intended, right?
Mm. I'm curious, Lindsay, what is your top saboteur?
Yeah, so my saboteurs do battle. So I am a hyperachiever and a pleaser. And uh,
Interesting.
yes, they are in a constant struggle for supremacy. Um, and I still get caught. I mean, I've been
Hmm.
doing the positive intelligence work for several years now.
Yeah.
And like, honestly, there are a few people in this world that I will likely never be able to say no to. My grandmother is 99 years old,
Oh, God bless her. That's amazing.
right? She
Yeah.
gets whatever she wants.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. If I have the means and the wherewithal, I
Yeah.
will 100% do whatever it is, bend over backwards to make it happen for her.
Hmm.
She is old and she deserves it. I mean,
Yeah.
and my husband's like, why did you just come home with a crock pot? We don't
Yeah.
need a crock pot. I'm like, Grandma gave me a crock pot. She said I need to bring it home. I can't tell her that I already have two crock pots. That's
Right.
just not
Right.
going to happen. And you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm totally okay with that. Being a business owner, my hyperachiever, can cause me
Yeah.
to be a real workaholic.
Oh, me
It's
too.
never good enough. I'm never successful. You get it, right? We
Yeah,
have
I
this.
get it.
And so I have to constantly monitor that,
Hmm.
how am I showing up? How am I delivering?
Yeah.
And consistently redefining for myself what success is and what enough is, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's an ongoing conversation. It doesn't
It never ends, but I think
stop.
that that's the thing that at least I get a lot of hope from, right? That um the more that I do this work, it's not about like, oh, I still have to do the work, but it's like, oh, I'm evolving. I
Yes.
may still be having that little saboteur telling me I'm not enough or I need to do it better. However, the voice is not as loud, right?
Yeah,
I like the analogy of we have these tapes kind of running, and it's sort of maybe a jukebox in our brain, and we can never disconnect it. We can never change the album that's playing, but we can lessen the volume. And
100%.
that's really important. The more that we spend doing this type of work is so key. It's incredibly helpful. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I love it. It's work. I mean, I know you're passionate about it. I am too.
yeah,
Because it fundamentally changes your relationship with yourself.
yeah,
As a leader, if we are not constantly running around hijacked
mhm,
by our saboteur
yeah,
and hijacking others on our team or in our business,
hmm,
then we get better work done faster and more effectively, and we all feel
yeah,
awesome about delivering it.
hmm,
But when I'm the business owner and I'm just running around hijacked all the time, I'm just spreading it around. That's all
yeah.
I'm doing,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. And,
Yeah.
it's interesting because, again, as a business owner, it is very easy to get hijacked. And one of the things that I've noticed is my husband is part of the business. And a lot of times he comes in and he's kind of in his own little thing. And I have to remind myself, I'm not responsible for him. I can only take care of myself. And a lot of times he'll say something and I'm ready to respond. And it's like, nope, nope, can't hijack myself. And
No,
start, because that's the awareness we all need to bring into our everyday life. I was watching something earlier about that intentionality of life, and sometimes with the noise that we have in the world is very difficult to keep that intentionality.
100%. I mean, I use it all the time. I have adult children.
Mhm.
So my oldest is 26. I have two little grandsons.
Oh,
And then I have a young son that's turning 19, and we got a couple kids in the middle. So everybody is sort of in that young adult stage. And
mhm,
and I'll tell you, the opportunity to approach them without being hijacked myself.
yeah,
I am not like these young people
mhm,
have to make decisions, and that's
mhm,
my job, is to prepare them. It's not to keep them from making a
mhm.
mistake.
Yeah,
They're going to screw it up.
yeah.
I have a 25-year-old son. If any of you are listening and you have a 20-something young man in your life, you know they are lovely humans and they are dumb as a box of rocks. Like, bless
Oh,
them.
yeah, God
But
bless them
my
indeed.
goodness, the prefrontal cortex is not fully engaged. They are not
Mhm,
making rational choices. We love him. He's handsome
mhm,
as all get out. He'll be successful in life.
mhm.
But you can't, like, it's not our job to prevent them from feeling discomfort and pain and
Yeah,
from making bad choices. Our job is to actually support them in the learning
mm,
and the growth.
yeah,
They have to be enabled to have their own opportunities, just like we got. And so managing and controlling my own saboteur
mhm,
has this idea that I have to be the perfect mom, right? That
mm,
it's not good enough.
yeah, yeah.
That my children, we do this, our children are a reflection of us.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
You stop it. You're not that important. Like, come on,
Hmm.
right?
Now, Lindsay, I couldn't help but to think, right, that what you were describing with your son is very similar to what happens when we as leaders have maybe a brand new team member.
100%.
And we have to allow them to make their own mistakes. We have to allow them to sort of navigate and give them that room. And I think that is one of the hard parts.
It can
Yeah.
be, yeah. One of the frameworks that I've used for many, many years, and I still do workshops and coach around this, is situational leadership. And
Hmm.
so the idea that we manage our leadership interactions with our team members in a way that's appropriate for their progress. So if I do have a new team member, maybe I have a new college grad, right? They're
Hmm.
super excited. They've got lots of that great book learning, but they
Yeah.
never actually applied that before.
Hmm.
What does that person require from me as a leader in that situation
Mm,
versus the very experienced, high performing individual who's been in the business and in that role and is actually ready for their next role, but
mhm,
they're very high performing and completely competent.
Hmm.
They need something very different from me. And the problem is, as leaders, we sometimes struggle to identify who needs what when.
Mm.
When we can use a structure like situational leadership to actually understand how we need to show what we need to be giving, how
Yeah.
we need to be showing up, that's very powerful so that we can help those younger people that are in our business be successful at a faster pace.
Yeah, amazing, amazing.
Yeah.
I love this conversation. I told you, listener, that, my friend, if you're paying attention, these are the conversations that we can add things to our toolbox and really continue to draw from in these moments of growth. And every opportunity is an opportunity for growth if we allow it to be. Tell me a little bit more about how individuals work with you. What offers, what programs do you have? Because I think that, I would love to have someone like you always in my corner. And I know that the listeners are noticing this, that you come with a wide array of experiences, but that empathy and support. So tell me more about that.
Thank you for that. And that is exactly it. So I do a combination of fractional HR
Hmm.
partnership with my clients. So, having that 20-year background in tactical HR and strategic talent management,
Nice.
I am that person in your pocket that you need when you are
Hmm.
considering how you want to build your team strategically and what the programs and processes are to do that. And then, of course, like you, Julie, I also bring to the table a real deep love and knowledge base in terms of leadership development and organizational development. And
Yeah.
so I combine the two things and do that in a way that's really accessible. Most of my clients don't need me in their business full. They
Yeah.
need me when they need me, or they need me on a regular basis as that thought partner
Mhm.
and co-designer. And so that's what I do in a very fractional way.
Yeah, amazing. Now, what do you envision for yourself and what are you working on for the new year?
Yeah, thank you for asking me that because I'm super excited. I spent a lot of time in my own thought leadership last year, really redefining my method. So I combine leadership, people, strategy, and culture. So that's my LPC method. I am in the first quarter of 2025 launching my LPC accelerator.
Ooh,
And
nice.
so that's a program, right, that
Mhm.
actually then implements that methodology. It includes one-on-one work. It includes weekly group
Mhm.
conversations. I call them love seats. Someone
Oh, I
call them
love that.
call
Yeah.
them hot seats.
I
Um,
love the love seats.
exactly. You get some
Yeah.
loving, right?
Yeah.
Instead of feeling uncomfortable because your bum's on fire, you get to feel
Hmm.
the love. That's how I approach it. Um,
Lindsay, I'm going to have to borrow that.
yeah, 100%. By all means. And then, combining all of that with access to my incredible library of resources. So,
Mhm.
tools, templates, strategy structures, to really wrap my arms around
Mhm.
a small business owner who really needs that support in terms of
Mhm.
strategically growing their team and their leadership. And so I'm going to be launching that LPC accelerator in the first several months of 2025. And I'm super excited to do that because that's the way I love to interact. I want one-on-one time with people, but I want to create a space where we can learn. There's peer
Mhm.
coaching is so
Yeah,
valuable.
indeed.
And then blend in some of the consulting pieces so I
Mhm.
can really get gritty with
Mhm.
people and problems in their business.
Oh, so good. So good.
Yeah.
I can't wait to see what amazing things 2025 has for you. Now, we unpacked a lot of different things. I wonder if the listener wants to go and do implementation, because hearing is great, implementing and integrating into our life is better. What is one thing that you would recommend that they can maybe start to work on that will give them a big bang for their buck?
Yeah, what a great question. And I'm going to go bold here. I
Love it.
think one thing that's going to, if you want to actually improve your leadership and you want to start doing that today, go bold, start asking for the feedback.
That's a
Step
good
into
one.
it, be courageous.
Yeah,
Find,
it's a good
make
one.
yourself a list of 10 people who you
Mhm.
know they love you, they're invested with
Mm.
you, they're champions for you,
Yeah.
and ask them. Go
Hmm.
for it. Record it. Collate it. Find
Wow.
the themes.
So
Do
good.
it.
Yeah.
Go bold. Go bold.
And I think that is the discomfort, right? That's stepping out of your
Yeah,
comfort zone and taking, and by the way, again, it is a level of emotional intelligence that we'll take, and sometimes we may not want to hear it, but there's no way to be better unless we hear it, and then we
it's
acknowledge
true.
it, and we begin to figure out how to shift from it. So
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I could talk to you all day as I like to. Most of the guests that I invite are amazing, and I can, just have these conversations forever. But obviously, we want to be sensitive to your time and graciousness so far. Thank you so much for being here. Where do people find you on the interwebs?
Yes, thank you. Highvoltageleadership.ca is my website. I spend
Okay.
a lot of time on LinkedIn, so please come
Mm-hmm.
connect with me, Lindsay White, on LinkedIn. And then, of course, you can also find me on Instagram, and my handle
Okay.
there is at High Volt Leadership.
Very good. Very good. Well, I am so grateful that you're taking the time to be here. I'm so happy that we've connected and that we're in each other's universe. And if you are looking for that right support and this conversation really resonated with you, I want to encourage you, number one, to take what Lindsay say and try to implement it in your life. Try to make that takeaway a real tangible for you. Number two, go and connect with Lindsay on the social media platforms. We're going to have her information in the show notes. And this way you can let her know what you loved. And please feel free to give her feedback and to make friends with Lindsay. I am so grateful again, everybody. And we are all in this journey together. The more that we support each other, the more that we take these tips and tools, the better we can make the world and create that ripple effect. Thank you so much for tuning in to Casa de Confidence. And thank you so much for being here. Share this episode also with someone who you know may really enjoy and benefit from it. Until next time, thank you, Lindsay. And don't forget, everybody, go confidently in the direction of your dreams.